tonight's news bulletin, coming to you live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman television. But first, the headlines. His Majesty the Sultan offers his condolences to the Russian president over the victims of the civilian plane crash in the Tinder region in eastern Russia. The Sultanate of Oman commends and welcomes the historic announcement by the French president of his country's intention to recognize the state of Palestine. Militaries and wounded in renewed Israeli raids on the Gaza Strip, and Hamas rejects the U.S. envoy's statements regarding the progress of ceasefire negotiations in the Strip. Thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of condolences to His Excellency President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation on the victims of the civilian plane crash in the Tinder region in eastern Russia. His Majesty the Sultan sends a cabal of greetings to His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Moizo, President of the Republic of Maldives, on the occasion of his country's National Day. The Sultanate of Oman has commended and welcomes the historic announcement by French President Emmanuel Macron of France's intention to recognize the state of Palestine during the upcoming United Nations General Assembly. In a statement issued by the Foreign Ministry today, the Sultanate of Oman has urged countries that have not yet recognized Palestine as a state to do so, reaffirming support for a two-state solution and the Palestinian right to statehood on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. The statement stressed that such steps would advance the prospects for peace and justice in the Middle East. And the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Jassim Mohammed Al-Badawi, has welcomed President Emmanuel Macron's announcement that France will recognize the state of Palestine this September. He described the move as a vital step that reflects France's commitment to justice and international law and praised its efforts to promote peace and global stability. Al-Badawi urged other countries that have yet to recognize Palestine to follow suit, calling it a historic and responsible act that would ease the suffering of the Palestinian people and support a just and lasting peace in the region. He reaffirmed the GCC's firm position in supporting a two-state solution based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital. More than 10 Palestinians were killed by Israeli occupation forces' fire in areas across the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Ministry of Health stated that the occupation targeted a number of starving, displaced persons and aid seekers in several areas, while the occupation launched shelling on populated areas north of Gaza City, resulting in a number of deaths and injuries. The Ministry of Health added that more than 60 Palestinians were killed in the past hours, including approximately 25 people waiting for aid. Meanwhile, Hamas condemned the statements made by U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, who held the movement responsible for the failure of the ceasefire negotiations in Gaza. The movement added that the U.S. envoy's statements do not reflect the positive atmosphere that prevailed during the last round of talks, which, according to the movement, the mediators were optimistic about that and that progress was clear. Witkoff said that Hamas' response to the latest proposals demonstrates its unwillingness to reach a ceasefire, announcing the return of the U.S. negotiating team from Doha to Washington for consultations. In a related context, Hamas explained that reaching a temporary ceasefire agreement with Israel is possible if Israel shows sufficient flexibility and does not deliberately sabotage the agreement. It added that in turn, has offered maximum flexibility in the indirect negotiating taking place in the capital Doha with Qatari and Egyptian mediation. The United Nations has denied Israeli allegations that it refuses to distribute food aid to the population of the Gaza Strip. They are facing multiple obstacles, said United Nations spokesperson Farhan Haq, adding that the approval process imposed by the Israeli army for aid distributions multi-layered, extremely exhausted, and cases significant delays. The United Nations confirmed its teams were able to receive aid shipments, most of which consisted of flour at 2 border crossing, and successfully bring them into the coastal Gaza Strip, which is home to 2 million people. However, United Nations stressed that the quarantines delivered remains insufficient and fall for short of meeting the population's basic survival needs. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that every effort must be made to protect innocent lives and end the suffering and hunger of the people of Gaza. In a statement, Albanese added that Israel's blocking of aid and the killing of civilians, including children seeking water and food, cannot be ignored or defended, describing the situation in Gaza as a humanitarian catastrophe. For his part, the Canadian Prime Minister said that his country condemns the Israeli government's failure to prevent the worsening humanitarian disaster in Gaza, adding that Canada will exert its efforts in all forums regarding the two-state solutions in New York next week.
Look for the best interests of the U.S. There have been a series of discussions. Senior ministers have been in Washington. They'll be returning.
Iran and the European EU three countries, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, resume nuclear talks today in Istanbul, the first negotiations since the ceasefire following the last war between Israel and Iran. Key European demands in the negotiations including renewed access for United Nations nuclear inspectors and clarification of the fate of 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, the whereabouts of which have been unknown since the U.S. attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. The European Union, or EU3, warned that if progress is not achieved in the negotiations, they will support the imposition of United Nations sanctions on Iran. Thailand announced that 12 people were killed and 31 injured, mostly civilians, in ongoing border clashes with Cambodia. Cambodia has reported no casualties so far, but Prime Minister Hun Manet urged citizens in Thailand to return home. Both countries blame each other for the violence, which stems from a long-standing border disputes dating back over a century. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman television. Still to come in our news bulletin. With local and international participation, activities of Oman Kite Festival concluded in the Wilaya of Sur. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. As part of efforts to ensure a safe tourism experience during Kharif season, the Consumer Protection Authority has launched an intensive awareness and inspection campaign under the slogan, "Your trust is our goal." The campaign targets key tourist sites and commercial markets across the Far Governorate, aiming to enhance consumer safety and confidence during the high visitor season. Under the patronage of His Excellency Dr. Yahya bin Badr Al Mauli, Governor of South Al Sharqiyya, the Sultanate of Oman wrapped up one of its most colorful sporting events, welcome athletes from around the world to the 2025 Kite Festival in the Wilaya of Sur. More details in this report.
Colorful kites, fast winds, and fierce competition, Oman's coastline turned into a playground in the sky as nearly 100 athletes from around the world took part in this year's kite festival. For 10 days, the winds over Sur carried not just kites, but the energy of a global sporting celebration. The races covered some of the country's most scenic spots, from Barra al-Hakaman to Ras al-Had, where athletes took on long-distance downwinders and freestyle events. With steady breeze, warm weather, and wide-open beaches, Oman's coastline offered ideal conditions for kite racing.
It was an opportunity for the Saudi team to compete against different nationalities and gain experience by seeing other kiters who are really experts and show off the good skills they have. We are so proud of Salman for making it to third place, and we expect to see this developing more, inshallah, in Saudi.
But it wasn't just about the sport. The festival brought families, tourists, and locals together with beachside activities, eco-friendly workshops, and even kids' kite-making stations. It felt less like a competition and more like a celebration of Oman's coastal life.
I'm really super excited. It was a really great experience. It's one of those experiences that would never be forgotten. We have about more than 77 participants this year. We went through different amazing places. We highlighted the country, the beauty of our beaches. So I'm so excited, and I think that the next coming one will be more great.
And the big moment when local athlete Ayman Al-Ghafri soared past the finish line to take first place. His teammate Mukhtar Al-Mujani followed in second, while Egypt's Ahmed Mohammed came in third. It was the kind of finish that had the crowd on their feet and proved that Oman isn't just hosting world-class events, it is owning them.
A lovely international sports there in Sur. Rainfall or varying intensity fell on several villages in the Wilaya of Ibri and Al-Dhahir Governorate. Some mountainous areas and villages experienced moderate to heavy rainfall, causing several wadis to overflow. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty the Sultan offers his condolences to the Russian president over the victims of the civilian plane crash in the Tinda region in eastern Russia. The Sultanate of Oman commends and welcomes the historic announcements by the French president of his country's intention to recognize the state of Palestine. And militaries and wounded in renewed Israeli raids in the Gaza Strip, and Hamas rejects the U.S. envoy's statements regarding the progress of ceasefire negotiations in the Strip. And with that, we do conclude this news bulletin live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman television, directed by Salim Al-Mahwali. Good night.